The film opens on the Predator homeworld, Yautja Prime. A barren, brutal landscape. Two Yautja warriors are locked in vicious, hand-to-hand combat inside a rocky cave. The larger fighter is Quay, the smaller, struggling to keep up, is his younger brother Dek. Quay batters Dek relentlessly, calling him weak and too small to take me on, but he never delivers a killing blow. The fight is a training session, a rite of passage for Dek, who is about to embark on his first true hunt. Even in defeat, Dek refuses to yield. Quay finally stops, and the two share a moment of brotherly affection. Quay's lesson is harsh but loving. He wants Dek to survive the brutal Yautja world. The brothers return to Quay's ship. Quay explains that failure means death in their clan. He shows Dek a holographic star map of possible hunting grounds. Dek, desperate to prove he is not the runt everyone sees, selects the most lethal target, the Kalisk, a legendary, supposedly unkillable apex predator that even their father fears. The creature lives on Genna, a death planet where every plant and animal is a threat. Dek makes a formal vow: if he is the weakest, he will kill the strongest. Quay is horrified but cannot dissuade him. A third ship lands. Their father, clan leader Njor, has returned from his own hunt. He discovers that Quay has not killed Dek as ordered. Njor sees Dek as a runt who deserves culling. He traps Dek and orders Quay to execute his brother on the spot. Quay hesitates, then instead uses his sword to free Dek and fires a grappling hook to pull him into the ship. Quay starts the launch sequence, but Njor attacks. Father and son duel savagely. Njor severs Quay's arm, then decapitates him in front of Dek. With his last breath, Quay triggers the ship's autopilot. The ship blasts off, and a helpless Dek watches his brother's murder. The mission is no longer just about proving himself, it is now about honoring Quay. Dek's ship hits a ring of orbital debris and breaks apart. He ejects in a small escape seat and plummets into the jungle of Genna. The moment he gets to his feet, predatory vines attack, trying to strangle and tear him apart. He hacks through them with his plasma sword, but the vines strip him of most of his gear. He escapes with only his sword and a few throwable weapons stored in his gauntlet. Moving forward, he encounters tiny exploding worm creatures that burst when he steps near them. He presses on, determined to find the Kalisk. Dek enters a clearing filled with spike pods, plants that fire paralyzing barbs. A flock of Genna vultures circles overhead, waiting for prey to be incapacitated. He hears a voice above. A young woman is trapped on a cliffside. She warns him about the plants and the vultures. One of the pods fires a barb that hits Dek, and he begins to stiffen. Before losing consciousness, he tosses her a small blade. The woman frees herself, kills the vulture, and administers an antidote from the local flora to Dek. When he wakes, he sees she has no legs. She was torn in half by the Kalisk. She introduces herself as Thaya, a Wayland Yutani synthetic. She offers to help Dek track the Kalisk if he will help her find her severed legs. Dek is reluctant. Yautja code demands he hunt alone, but he rationalizes that a machine is a tool, not a partner. He straps Thaya to his back like a backpack, and the unlikely duo sets of. Dek tells Thaya he needs to eat. They spot a herd of bone bison grazing in a field of razor grass, blades so sharp they can slice flesh to the bone. Before Dek can act, a small, frog-like creature drops from a tree and startles the herd. The bison stampede. Unable to cross the razor grass, Dek leaps from treetops onto the back of one of the running beasts. It crashes into a tree, throwing him and Thaya off. The bison turns and charges. At the last second, Dek throws his plasma sword straight into the creature's exposed face, cleaving it in two. The little creature that started the chaos rolls past, and Dek lunges at it, but it escapes up a tree. Thaya names the creature Bud. The commotion attracts a far larger predator, a Luna bug, a tripod-like carnivorous arthropod that lives in the canopy. It shoots out barbed tentacles, grabs Dek and Thaya, and drags them into the trees toward its mouth. Just as they are about to be eaten, Bud leaps into the Luna bug's mouth and curls into a ball. The creature's teeth shatter on Bud's impenetrable shell. The Luna bug drops Dek and Thaya. They fall to the ground and run, but the bug chases them into the razor grass field. Bud rolls through the sharp blades, luring the bug into the open. Dek chops down a tree, rides it as it falls, and plunges his sword into a soft spot on the Luna bug's carapace, killing it. Later, Dek fashions armor from the bone bison's skull and bones. Night falls. Dek, Thaya, and Bud sit around a fire. Thaya reveals that Bud is female. Dek feeds her some of the bone bison meat, and Bud spits on him. Thaya explains this is a mark of gratitude. Bud is claiming Dek as part of her clan. Dek mentions that he lost his brother but does not reveal how. Thaya teaches him about earth wolves, that Alpha does not kill the most prey but protects the pack. Dek misunderstands and believes the Alpha is the one who kills the most. The next morning, Dek leaves Bud behind while she sleeps, despite Thaya's protests. They head toward the Weyland-Yutani wreckage to find Thaya's legs. Elsewhere, Tessa, Thaya's identical twin synthetic, is recovered by Weyland-Yutani and repaired. She reports to the AIMU/TH/UR and is told she will be decommissioned if she fails to capture the Kalisk. She is informed that a Yautja, Dek, is on the planet and has Thaya. Tessa assembles a team of synths and returns to the field. Meanwhile, Dek and Thaya find the remains of Thaya's crew. Thaya attempts to repair herself and reveals that Weyland-Yutani's true goal is to capture the Kalisk for its regenerative abilities. She urges Dek to flee, saying he cannot kill the beast. Feeling betrayed, Dek refuses to run. He faces the adult Kalisk alone, armed only with his plasma sword. The fight is brutal. Dek manages to sever the creature's head and tail, but the Kalisk regenerates instantly. It overpowers Dek and pins him, but then pauses. It sniffs him and, for reasons unknown, spares his life. Before Dek can process this, Tessa's team arrives. Using cryogenic explosives scavenged from Dek's crashed ship, they freeze and capture both Dek and the Kalisk. Tessa congratulates Thaya on completing the mission. She then experiments on the captured Dek and dismisses Thaya's growing emotions as weakness. Tessa orders Thaya to be boxed up for deactivation. Thaya, regretting her betrayal, secretly frees Dek. He escapes into the jungle and finds the wreckage of Quay's ship. There, he grieves his brother and finally understands Thaya's lesson: a true Alpha protects the pack, rather than killing the most. He uses the planet's flora and fauna to craft improvised weapons, explosives, blades, and traps. Dek returns to the Weyland-Yutani camp and finds Bud. He realizes that Bud is the Kalisk's child, that is why the adult spared him. It smelled Bud's saliva on him. He decides to rescue the Kalisk as well. Dek and Bud infiltrate the Weyland-Yutani facility. Dek carves through the synth guards, freeing Thaya and reuniting her with her severed legs. They find the captive Kalisk. Dek kills the remaining guards, but Tessa appears, piloting a power loader and wielding Quay's plasmacaster. Thaya frees the Kalisk, and the beast joins the fight. It swallows Tessa alive. But Tessa activates cryogenic grenades from inside the Kalisk's body and fires the plasmacaster, killing the creature. She emerges and prepares to execute Thaya for her betrayal. Dek impales Tessa with his sword, and Bud tears off her head and spine, a true predator trophy. Dek reclaims his brother's plasmacaster. Sometime later, Dek returns to Yautja Prime with Thaya, a now much larger Bud, and Tessa's skull as his trophy. He presents the skull to his father and demands his own cloaking device, the mark of a true hunter. Jor scoffs. Dek failed to kill the Kalisk, so he is still a failure. The clan leader orders his bodyguards to finish Dek. But this is a different Dek, battle-hardened and clever. He makes quick work of the guards, then challenges his father. Father and son duel. Dek uses everything he learned on Genna, avoiding Jor's traps and cutting off his arm. He restrains Jor with the Elder's own trap. Jor, finally acknowledging Dek's strength, tries to barter for his life, offering Dek a place in the clan. Dek refuses. He has found his own clan, Thaya and Bud. An older Bud bites off Jor's head. Dek takes the cloaking device for himself. Dek, Thaya, and Bud stand together as a new, untraditional clan. The remaining Yautja warriors draw their weapons, unsure how to react. Suddenly, a massive Yautja ship descends on the horizon. Thaya asks if it is friendly. Dek grabs his sword and says, "My mother."